Welcome back to In the Clutch. I'm your host, Draft Raw, and in this video is the second part to the two-part series for the 2021 NFL Draft Review. And if you want to see the first part, look in the description box below. So without further ado, let's just get straight into it. With the 17th pick, the Las Vegas Raiders decided to select Alex Leatherwood, left tackle, Alabama. This was the biggest surprise in the draft. Why? Because nobody thought Alex Leatherwood would get drafted in the first round. There were other tackles on the board that people felt was probably a better pick. And it's a little weird because Alex played left tackle exclusively at Alabama. And there is the talk that he's going to be playing right tackle for the Las Vegas Raiders. The reason why it's a little weird is because, like I said, being an exclusive left tackle in college and being highly regarded, you would think that that type of player would stick on that side of the ball. Switching to the other side of the ball sometimes is a little bit hard for certain players. Being on the right side requires you to mirror the actions on the left side, but do it in reverse. The problem is some players can't do it in reverse. And I don't know if Alex Leatherwood will be able to, but it's one of those things that they're taking a risk by selecting a guy like Leatherwood. Now, the Raiders have always made surprise picks. Didn't matter who was the GM or who was the head coach. They always had picks that people will scratch their head and think like, why would you pick that player when you could have got him later? This is another situation, but the GM and the head coach had who their guy was going to be, and they select their guy, Alex Leatherwood. Alex Leatherwood, we'll see, but I don't know. Anyway, with the next pick, the Miami Dolphins decided to select Jaelan Phillips, edge rusher from Miami. This was the best edge rusher in the class. I said it. Some other people said it. It wasn't a lot of people on the train, but I considered him the best edge guy in this draft. Honestly, just as a pure pass rusher, to me, you couldn't get any better than him. And then his ability to be able to stop the run, he always used his quickness and speed to be able to get around offensive tackles, to be able to get after the running back. And then, like I said, it's pretty much the most purest pass rusher in this draft. Was very bendy, had a great burst to get off the line of scrimmage. Certain things that you can't teach in the NFL. It's kind of hard to teach that type of stuff. You have to be born with the ability to be able to do that. And honestly, he stays pretty much where he's at, Miami Dolphins, and he played in Miami College. And he gets to be a pass rusher for a team that is on the rise in the Dolphins. And hopefully this is a guy that can pretty much put them over the edge. Like I said, I really love Jaelan Phillips and hope he actually dropped to my Baltimore Ravens. But I congratulate him on him of being the first edge guy off the draft board. Then with the very next pick, the Washington football team decided to select Jamin Davis, linebacker from Kentucky. This is a guy that's been on the rise. I mean, he's been on a skyrocketing rise. This is a guy that he has the speed. Of course, I keep saying the athleticism. I'm gonna keep on saying it because a lot of these guys are very, very, very athletic, more than what we've seen from years past. But he gives the Washington football team that one player on defense that they were missing, that guy in the middle. They have pretty solid safeties, right? They have pretty good corners. They have the best defensive line in the NFL. But the linebacker position was their only weakness. Now, Jamin Davis gives them that linebacker that they really need in terms of speed. They have other linebackers that are there, and they're good, solid guys. They're, can stop the run, and they can do, certain things here or there, be able to take on blocks and stuff like that. But with a guy like Jamin Davis, it gives them that speed. It gives them a guy that can cover tight ends, can cover running backs. And like I said, the athleticism and the speed to run sideline to sideline and be able to make plays. It is something that they have been missing for a while. And be honest with you, I think this is a great pick for the Washington football team. Then with the very next pick, the New York Giants, who did trade back. Like I said, they were picking 11th earlier. They traded with the Chicago Bears, and now they were picking 20th, and they decided to select, kind of surprised, but a guy that I think that most people would have thought would have went in the first round, and that is wide receiver Kadarius Toney from Florida. The reason why it was kind of surprised is because he was picked a little bit higher than what people thought he was going to get picked. But this is a player that I think on a lot of scouts' boards, he was the 4th best wide receiver. Here's a guy that he has obviously athleticism. He has the explosiveness, and his explosiveness is probably the best in this draft at the receiver position. I know in the previous video I said Jalen Waddle had the best explosiveness, which his explosiveness is really, high rank. But when it comes to Kadarius, nobody's as explosive as him. His quickness is almost second to none, besides running back Michael Carter, and he's a running back. And the strength that he has, he's literally like a running back actually playing wide receiver. You don't see that often. The only person that was even close to that was Percy Harvin, who was drafted 12 years ago, that actually played the same position and went to the same school of Florida. So it's a little bit of a heritage there when it comes to a player like him. This is a player that, the Giants, they're getting another offensive weapon for Daniel Jones. They already signed Kenny Golladay. They already have Sterling Shepard. They already have some other guys. I can't remember their names right now. Darius Slayton is another receiver that they have. And now you bring in a Kadarius Toney. It just makes the offense a little bit more potent. And then with the very next pick, with the 21st pick, the Indianapolis Colts select the second edge rusher in this draft, and pretty much was the consensus top edge rusher on a lot of people's boards, not mine, but on a lot of scouts' boards, and that was Kwity Paye, edge guy from Michigan. I think it's a solid pick. Over the years, the Colts, to me, they haven't really drafted the best pass rushers. And I don't know if Kwity Paye is that guy. When I watched him on tape, I didn't even have him as a top 5 edge rusher. He just wasn't there for me. I just didn't see the natural pass rushingness, if you want to say, from him. I believe that he was a solid player, but I would have gave him a second round grade. Now, consensusly, he's been mocked in the first round. So obviously, I see why he went in the first round. But over the years, they haven't been the best at selecting them. So I don't actually trust their judgment in actually selecting a guy like Kwity Paye at the edge position. But we will see if he can be the guy that they want him to be. The biggest thing that he does give them is that he's not just a straight-up edge guy. The simple fact is that he has the athleticism to be able to drop back in coverage. And there was a video that came out that showed how smooth he was moving backwards. So it showed some more versatility for a guy that, is looked at as a straight up 4-3 defensive end. It shows the versatility that maybe he's a little bit more athletic than what we thought. And he could play in the system that the Colts play in their 3-4 system. More of a linebacker edge guy and not just an edge guy. Then with the very next pick, the Tennessee Titans were on the board and they decided to select falling corner Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech. Now, Caleb was my number 2 corner in this draft until the back injury stuff started to come up. He didn't play this past year, 2020. The last time he played was in 2019. And since that time, from 2019 to now, he's had 2 back surgeries. That's alarming. You're playing football. It's a physical sport. Having back surgery is that's huge. And teams got scared away from that. And that's why he dropped in the draft. But if the back is not an issue, this guy can very well be one of the best corners in the NFL because of, obviously, athleticism, but also because he has the length and he has the speed and he has the mindset to play the cornerback position. I put him up there with J.C. Horn, who went 8th overall, as being neck and neck of the top corners in this draft. Now going on to the next pick, though. With the 23rd pick, the Vikings, who traded with the Jets traded up to 14, the Vikings traded down to the 23rd pick. They decided to select a player that they probably, if they didn't trade back, would have probably selected at the 14th pick, and that is left tackle Christian Darrisaw, Virginia Tech. Back-to-back Virginia Tech players for the first time that's ever happened. Christian Darrisaw is honestly, I can say, is definitely one of the better tackles in this draft, according to a lot of media scouts. I wasn't as high, right? And I wasn't as high because I think that he doesn't have the smooth and quick enough feet to play the left tackle position. Now, well, let me rephrase that. I think that it is quick enough, but it's just not at the level that I've seen from guys like Rashawn Slater and Penei Sewell. He needs to work on his kick step. That's the biggest thing he needs to work on. He shows his strength a lot of times, but it's very inconsistent. He definitely has the length, but it's the feet that pretty much get him in trouble. And if he gets better at his kick step, if he gets quicker, if he gets smoother at being able to pass block using his feet, he can definitely be one of the better players, not just from this draft, but in the NFL. He has that type of ability. Now, with the very next pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers were on the clock. They decided to select running back from Alabama, Najee Harris. This was the consensus pick that everybody mocked to the Steelers. Everybody said that the Steelers were going to draft a running back, and every single mock, it wasn't just a running back, it was the same running back, and that was Najee Harris. I don't want to say much about this. I mean, he's a good running back, and it's a pick that has been mocked to him. So nobody was surprised when they picked him. The only thing I will say is that I actually would have expected them to pick an offensive lineman, and they didn't do that. They decided to pick a running back. Their offensive line needs help, not the running back situation. Even though they can sit there and say that they don't feel great about their running back situation, we've seen over time, and history shows that you can get a running back later in the draft that can pretty much give you almost the same amount of production that you would get from most first round running backs. So even though it's not the pick that I would have want them to go with, they got the guy that they wanted the whole time and that people mocked to him. So it is what it is. Then with the very next pick, it actually went back-to-back with running backs, something that a lot of people actually didn't expect at all. And the Jaguars, who had the 25th pick, decided to choose running back from Clemson, who they already chose a quarterback from Clemson, so they put the two guys from Clemson together again, and that is Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne, I thought, was the best running back in this draft class. Balance, speed, power, catching ability, blocking ability, pretty much had everything that you look for in a running back. And the biggest thing that he had was his absolutely blinding speed. Najee Harris is not a speed guy, he's more of a power guy. Travis Etienne, he's got that speed, and he's a guy that they can pair up with James Robinson, who was an undrafted rookie free agent last year, who actually played really well for the Jaguars. Pair him up with him, and having Trevor Lawrence there, having that run game is going to be absolutely bonkers. And honestly, I think Travis Etienne, like I said, the best running back in this draft class, I think he can become one of the best running backs in the NFL in his rookie season. That's how good I think that Travis Etienne is. So then with the next pick, the Cleveland Browns were on the clock, and the draft was held in Cleveland, so obviously they was going crazy, cheering and everything. But when the pick was made, some people was kind of scratching their head because they decided to select cornerback from Northwestern, Greg Newsome II. The reason why people were scratching their heads is because they kind of already have a lot of corners. When it comes to their secondary, their safeties in general. They have John Johnson, and they have a coming back player in Grant Delpit. And they also have this other safety that's over there. I forget his name. Then at the cornerback position, they have Denzel Ward, they have Greedy Williams, and they also have another cornerback. I can't remember his name as well. So maybe, okay, you bring in Greg Newsome because it gives you three corners. So now you can feel comfortable because of last year, they lost their starting two corners. But it's a little weird because you would think that this was a selection at the cornerback position for them. No one thought it was one of their biggest needs. So for them to use their first round pick on a corner like Greg Newsome just says that they pretty much just went best player available. Now, and it's a position that you can never have enough of when it comes to corners, but you would think that they would have gone in a different direction, maybe safety, maybe linebacker. But if this was the guy that they really, really liked and they target, good for him, because I will say this, they definitely got one of the better corners in this draft. I do like Greg Newsome. One of the biggest problems is that on his tape in college, it was a lot of zone coverage. It wasn't a lot of man coverage. But when he did show that he can go man-to-man with a receiver, he was one of the best man-to-man corners that you would see. So even though the tape didn't show all that you wanted to see from him as a corner in terms of being a straight-up shutdown guy, to me it showed enough to prove that he could really play in this league and could possibly be one of the better corners in the NFL. Next, we're going to go with the Ravens pick. My team was up. They was on the clock with the 27th pick. And with this pick, they decided to select a falling wide receiver in the draft, and that was Rashad Bateman. No one thought that Rashad Bateman would drop that far. Not that it was too far, but nobody thought that Rashad Bateman was going to go to the Ravens. Who would have really thought that? I got to say, Rashad Bateman, I mean, this was a surprise to me. His 2020 tape wasn't the best, but his 2019 tape is just absolutely bonkers. The 2020 tape, he had a situation where he actually had COVID, and he actually lost about 20 pounds. So he tried to come back during the 2020 season and play, and he didn't look the same because he wasn't healthy enough to actually really play and be the player that we saw the year before. But you give him that year to get back into form, to get that muscle, get the muscle tone back in and everything. And this is a guy that could be a huge playmaker for the Baltimore Ravens, and somebody Lamar Jackson is going to love. He can go over the middle. He can do catches on the sideline. He can make very spectacular, wow catches that is going to be big for the Baltimore Ravens offense. And I'm so happy that he fell to my Baltimore Ravens. Then with the very next pick, the Saints were on the clock, and they decided to select another pretty much a surprise, and that is Peyton Turner, edge rusher from Houston. The reason why it was a surprise is because it wasn't till today, well, the draft day, that he was even looked at as possibly going in the first round. There was rumors that he could go in the first round. All of a sudden, he's there, and they actually select him. I really didn't expect it. For him to be the third edge rusher off the board was kind of like, whoa, that's a little weird. But he's a guy, like I said, he was rising in the draft boards, and it seems like the Saints were just enamored on him, and they really, really love him. And they have a history of choosing edge guys that come from small schools. We've seen Marcus Davenport from whatever school he went to, Texas San Antonio, and then we've seen Trey Henderson, who went to FAU, and now you got a guy like Peyton Turner, who went to Houston. These are not big schools, but what all of those edge guys have in common was that they were very athletic and they were very big. So they have a certain type that they like, and they pretty much have been able to work with, and that's why they've constantly been one of the best teams within the NFL. So I just want to say it is a good pick. Then with the next pick, the Packers did the dumbest move I could actually even think of. The Packers selected Eric Stokes, cornerback from Georgia. They need offensive weapons. They need a receiver. There were plenty of receivers on the board that they could target. Eric Stokes, I guess, was their guy. Honestly, if they were actually dumb enough to think that Rashad Bateman wouldn't get past the Ravens, I just don't understand the mindset. The Packers should have been a team that should have traded up above the Ravens to select Rashad Bateman. Maybe there was no catches. Maybe nobody was really saying that they wanted to trade back. But I just look at this pick and just scratch my head, and it just makes me mad because it's like you select a guy, okay, you need a corner, but your quarterback wants out, and you still refuse to give him offensive weapons. Aaron Rodgers should definitely just leave. Like, be honest with you, he should probably retire, to be honest with you, because the Packers are doing him no good by selecting guys like Eric Stokes and last year quarterback Jordan Love that did nothing to help the team. If they would have selected a receiver last year, maybe they would have been in the Super Bowl this year. And then they come back this year again and they don't choose a receiver. I don't know what to say. I'm gonna just say, I don't know what to say. I'm gonna just leave it at that, and we're just gonna go to the next pick. And with the next pick, the Buffalo Bills were on the clock with the 30th pick, and they selected Gregory Rousseau, edge guy or edge rusher from Miami. This is a player that dropped down the boards. He didn't play 2020 season. He decided to opt out. He played 2019, and he had 15 and a half sacks. Great numbers. But when you watch the tape, a lot of the sacks come off of coverage sacks where it was more than 3 seconds. And he was then able to get to the quarterback. And a lot of the sacks came off of inside pressure, meaning as though he didn't have a lot of pressure from the outside edge, which is kind of bad for a guy that's 6'7", 260 pounds, and you don't have that ability to bend around the edge or the quickness and change the direction skills to get around the edge to get to the quarterback. It's a little bit alarming, but there's a skill set with him that you could really build on. I do like this pick for the Buffalo Bills because this is a good team and it's a good coaching staff, so they can really make him into one of the better edge rushers in the NFL. But it's one of those things is that with a guy like him, you have to have a plan on how you're going to use him, or he's just going to be a guy that's kind of just going to go by the wayside and just be a first-round bust. Hopefully he doesn't become that, because I really, really liked him, and I actually hope that he actually did drop to the next pick, which was the Ravens pick at the 31st pick. I really hope that he did drop, but he didn't. He went to the pick before. It's all good, because the Baltimore Ravens, with the 31st pick, decided to select edge rusher for Penn State, Jayson Oweh. I'm not the biggest Oweh fan. Obviously, he had 0 sacks this past season when he played. But the one thing that Oweh does bring, he brings the most freakiest athleticism that you would see at the defensive end position. He is the first defensive end ever to run in the 4.3s. That's speed that wide receivers and corners run. And he weighs pretty much 50 pounds more than the average wide receiver and corner. Actually, 60 pounds more, if I want to be actually correct about that. Jayson Oweh is, like I say, he's an athletic freak. He had 0 sacks. But the one thing I could hang my hat on was that he was a good run defender. And what we know about the Ravens is the Ravens love edge guys that can stop the run. So I understand the pick. I do understand the pick. I don't love the pick, but I understand the pick. What I will say is that hopefully his athleticism can be something that we can coach up and be able to use as a great pass rusher, and he can become one of the better pass rushers in this draft, or pretty much in the NFL. He has the athleticism, he has the size, he has the length, he has all the tools that you want. He just needs a little bit more coaching up of how to get to the quarterback. And he really does have a chance to be one of the best. I'm just going to say it here. And with the very last pick, thank God I got to the last pick. Finally, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers decided to select Joe Tryon, another edge rusher from the University of Washington. Joe is a guy that at first I expected him to go in the first round. And then as the draft process went along, I kind of took him out, and a lot of people took him out. But for some reason, there was still mock drafts where you'll see him in the first round. Even though nobody thought that maybe he wouldn't go, he was still being put there. He went in the last pick in the first round to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I can tell you right now that they're getting a guy that reminded me a lot of T.J. Watt, who is possibly the best pass rusher or edge guy in the NFL right now. He has the size, he has the speed, he has the length, he has the quickness, he has, like I said, all the tools. He's kind of freaky, not as freaky as Jayson Oweh in terms of athleticism, but he's a pretty good freaky athlete. But what he really needs to work on is just like a Gregory Rousseau and even a Jason Oweh, is just to get better at his craft, get better at using his hands when he's rushing the passer, get better at being able to stack guys when it comes to run defense. He just needs a little bit of that coaching up because he has all the tools that you want from a defensive end, just a little bit more coaching up, and he can definitely be another guy that can be one of the better edge guys within the NFL. So anyway, that was the very last pick in this draft. That is the second part of this two-part series of the 2021 NFL Draft Review. I thank all you guys for watching. Have a good day. Goodbye.